Call to order the regular City Council meeting of June 13th, 2011 with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini.
Here.
City Clerk Patterson is here. Council members Ratty absent. Lawson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Kerrigan.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
City Manager Carey.
Here.
City Attorney Adams.
Here.
We have quorum.
Councilwoman Ratty will be a little bit late, but she will be here soon. Okay, if you could all stand for the invocation, please. Pastor Phil Vanna of the Summit Christian Church. Welcome, Pastor.
Please bow your heads. Father, thank you for this great day. I just thank you for this council, how they've given so much. They've given their very lives to serve this community. And God, I know they have some very important decisions to make concerning salaries and different budget things. And I just pray that you give them wisdom. I pray that they would not, that they would keep things that they need. They would cut things that can be sacrificed. And I know that, especially with salaries, God, that there's a lot of emotion with that, with different families. And I just pray that you would use this as a way to really salvage our community and keep it afloat, keep things running smoothly and well. And I pray for all the families that are going to be affected. There's going to be a lot of families in this city, and I pray that they would take the news well, that they would find ways to make things work, and that you would continue to bless those families and give them other opportunities. And I just pray for all the other decisions that they've got. I pray you give them wisdom and bless this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, for those kind words. If you'd remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Adams, would you lead us, please?
Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next I have comments from the public. Anyone under comments from the public like to speak at this time? I do have some cards, but they're on specific items. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Anybody want to take anything out of order or else looking for a motion? Mr. Lawson.
I'd like to pull 5.4 and talk about that.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Kerrigan?
I'd like to pull 5.2.
Okay, anyone else? Looking for a motion? Mr. Smith?
Move to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lawson?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously with those present. Okay, number 3, recommendation to approve minutes of the regular City Council meeting of May 9th, 2011, special meeting of May 17th, 2011, and the regular meeting of May 23rd, 2011. Any additions or corrections? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second? Mr. Schmidt.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Schmidt to approve the minutes as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Okay, moving on is presentations and announcements. Number 4 is presentation to Cadet Girl Scouts Sarah Kidd and Dana Marin. Mr. George, I forgot your last name, George. Graham. God, I'm sorry. I looked up and saw you and my mind went blank.
Oh, no, that's fine.
So I understand you're just going to make a quick presentation?
Yes.
Okay, and I've got the
ladies.
certificates up here, George.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I believe the two ladies, Sarah Kidd and Dana Marin, well, excuse me. Good afternoon, City Council, Mayor, everyone. George Graham, as a housing specialist. We had our community cleanup, and the young ladies contributed their time, and it was a great contribution to the success of it. as part of the community grant that we're implementing. And I'd just like to recognize
Okay,
them for their contribution to the community of that day.
great. You want to come down, girls? And I'll read the certificates and then I'll present them to you. Okay, these are City of Sparks certificates, one to Sarah Kidd and one to Dana Marin. And they read, "Thank you for your assistance with the City of Sparks neighborhood cleanup event. We appreciate your help keeping our city neat and clean." So let me give these to you, and then we'll have you say a few words if you want to. Have the mayor trained. Go ahead and say a couple words if you want to. No pressure.
I go first. I'd like to thank Mr. Graham for allowing us to do this because I know we like to help out the community and make the world a better place. Same thing.
Thanks, ladies. We really appreciate it. This is a good example of some of the fine young people we have in our city and step up to the plate and help us when we need it. So we appreciate it very much. Thanks. Anything else, George? No. Okay. Thank you so much, girls. Okay, next is Proclamation United States Army Week. You want to come down and I'll read the proclamation and then present it. Have a seat, sir.
Here. Thank you.
Whereas the United States Army was established by the First Continental Congress on the 14th day of June, 1775. And whereas the United States Army exists to defend the freedom of our citizens, our nation's security interests. And whereas many citizens of Sparks have served their nation and given the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our freedoms as members of the United States Army. And whereas it is proper to recognize the United States Army annually on its birthday and to thank those who have served and those who are presently serving. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim June 11th through the 17th, 2011, United States Army Week, and urge all citizens to join me in this salute to express our gratitude to those who have served and those who are now serving to protect our nation and its freedoms.
Gino's got his army green on. You got your army green on.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Army Recruiting Station here in Sparks, Sacramento Army Recruiting Battalion, United States Army, I'd like to say thank you for recognizing this week as U.S. Army Week. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do for us. Thanks. Okay, next is Proclamation Worldwide Red Hat Society Day. Ladies, you want to come on down? Okay, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas women over the age of 50, really,
Oh, yeah.
you guys look pretty
From
young,
the young to the oldest group.
are the largest segment of the national population at this time. And whereas the Northern Nevada Royals Red Hat Queens Council is pleased to announce they have many chapters in Sparks and are an important part of the worldwide membership of the Red Hat Society. And whereas Red Hat chapters are now in more than 30 countries around the world. And whereas Red Hat ladies can be easily spotted throughout Sparks, the country, and the state as their quest for fun takes them to shops, restaurants, theaters, and sites of public interest in the full Red Hat regalia, consisting of a purple outfit with a red hat if the lady is 50 years of age or older, and lavender outfits and pink hats for women under the age of 50. And whereas these women strive with endless desire to fulfill their duty to be there for others, husbands, children, home, work, church, business organizations, public office, and associations, and often struggle to find time for self. And whereas Red Hat ladies are an important part of our community, now therefore I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do proclaim January 25th, 2011, Worldwide Red Hat Society Day, and encourage all citizens to recognize and appreciate valuable contribution Red Hatters make to communities where they reside, socialize, and work. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure you give your name for the record, okay?
Bernice Strange, with Northern Nevada Royals, Queens Council for the Red Hat Society. We're back again in front of your Sparks City Council and happy to be here. We are now worldwide. We are in 30 countries, and we are very active here in the Sparks community. And the last time we had an official send-off from the Sparks City Council, you can't hear me? The last time that we were in front of the Sparks City Council and in the mayor's office, we were headed for London, 22 of us, and there was 132 from the United States that was in that group, 22 of which was from here. So that was really, very good for us. But we want to present to you, to the Northern Nevada Royals Red Hat Queens Council presents the Worldwide Hoot Day Certificate of Appreciation to Mayor Gino Martini and the City Council members of the City of Sparks for acknowledging the Red Hatters in the community on June 25th, Worldwide Red Hat Day. On that day, you will see many of us, we're going to go out in force throughout the communities, and we will also have a parade of over 200 women are going to be gathering to parade around in their outfits. So anyway, thank you for the acknowledgement. We do appreciate it.
Thanks, Bernice. Anyone else? Thanks, Bernice. Appreciate it.
Is this the red hat and purple sweater, or is it just coincidence? Always purple.
Yeah, always purple.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, ladies. Appreciate it. Okay, moving along to consent items. So we have two that we know we're going to pull. Anyone else want to pull a consent item? If not, looking for a motion. 5.2 and 5.4 are being pulled. Looking for a motion. Mr. Smith.
Move to approve consent items 5.1, 5.3, 5.5 through 5.8.
Do you have a second? Mr. Schmidt.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Schmidt to approve 5.1, 5.3, and 5.5 through 5.8. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Julia. Julia, how do you vote? Yes. Okay, go ahead and revote. Okay, display. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, 5.2, Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Who's going to answer my question that everybody knew was coming? Who won the bet? Just kidding.
I think we both lost.
Now, a quick question on it. There's in two different paragraphs, it says this contract provision has resulted in additional cost of $2,300 a year to the homeowners association, and then two paragraphs later it says the net change is approximately $2,300 savings to the homeowners association. So does that make it zero?
Yes, Mr. Kerrigan. For the record, Andy Hummel, Acting Utility Manager. Currently, under the current agreement, we have provisions in there for minimum delivery of 13 acre feet. They've been using approximately 5.4 acre feet. With the existing agreement, we're allowed to charge for up to that minimum allocation, which has cost them additional $2,300 a year above what their bill would be. So
then why does it say it's a savings?
It's going to be a savings to the HOA by moving to code with that provision no longer in place. They will no longer be paying for that minimum reservation.
Oh, the minimum's gone.
Yeah,
Okay.
as well as
and are they
lowering.
paying 96 cents per thousand?
Yes, they are, and they still will be.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's it. Thanks.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions on 5.2? Not looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second? Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Kerrigan, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 5.2. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, 5.4, Mr. Lawson.
Yes, who's going to answer this one? You are, John? My question is, when we put this out for bid originally, and that pump would not work is what's coming on, I'm not sure how we didn't know that, or maybe you can explain the process to make it more clear for me.
Certainly, Councilman Smith, this actually didn't go out to bid. This is on our on-call services list for professional engineers. We hired Shaw back in January. Our thought was Fire Station 4 up on Disk Drive has an existing sanitary sewer pump station. We were hopeful that we could move that pump station from the fire station over to the Parlanti Lane site. We've been having problems at Parlanti. And as it turns out, as the engineers have gone through the analysis, that is not possible. Our original thought was to move it from the fire station to the Parlanti Lane site and then use some existing pumps that we have at the yard at the fire station. Since we've gone through the analysis, the pumps at Fire 4 will not work at Parlanti, but we've also found a way to drain the sewer at Fire 4 by gravity. So that's what this new contract will do for us. They're going to have to design a new lift station for us at Parlanti and then also do the design of the gravity system at Fire 4.
So is this going to result in less cost to us? Or
Ultimately,
in the long
yes.
run?
Yes, it will, because we won't be running the lift station at the fire station anymore.
Okay.
And we're going to pick some efficiency up at Parlanti. We're going to have, we inherited the Parlanti Lane site several years ago. It's kind of been a problem for maintenance. With the new lift station, it should operate correctly and save us in maintenance costs.
That's what I was after. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on 5.4? Okay, if not, looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Ms. Ratty.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve agenda item 5.4. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on to general business. Consideration and possible acceptance of a donation from Baskin Robbins in the amount of $1,135. Mr. Allen. Welcome, Chief.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, Acting Deputy Chief Brian Allen for the record. This is just a chance for us to come before council and publicly recognize Baskin Robbins for making a donation to our K-9 program. Baskin-Robbins has been a long-term contributor to our K-9 program, and the funds that they provide us will go towards training accessories and needs, such as bite suits, harnesses, leashes, and those types of things. And this is just a chance for us to publicly recognize Baskin-Robbins for their continued support of our program.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
That's me.
Mr. Smith?
Wait, is there somebody here from Baskin-Robbins?
I do not believe they were able to show up today.
I just think it's great that in this economic time, I was wondering, did they have a special fundraiser, or is this just?
Every once in a while, we'll do a demonstration over at their store, and they have just been a long-term contributor, and one of the partners there is just a firm believer in the K-9 program and just loves our dogs, and they like to show their support.
Well, then I'd just like to say thank you to Baskin-Robbins, and I move to approve accept the donation.
Second, Mr. Schmidt.
I'll second it.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Schmidt to approve agenda item 6.1, acceptance of a donation from Baskin-Robbins in the amount of $1,135. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Oops. Did you have something to say, Ed? Okay. Yeah, well, Mr. Schmidt. Need you to push your button now, like for some reason it's not working. Okay. Please display. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Jim. Ma'am.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, moving on. You want to push your button there, Mr. Lawson? Yeah, there you go. 6.2, consideration and possible approval of an amendment to an agreement with the cities of Reno and Sparks and the Nature Conservancy for channel and wetland construction projects for the Lower Truckee River restoration.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. John Martini, Assistant Community Services Director. I think it's a rare day when I get to come forward to you with an amendment to an agreement that actually reduces our costs, so this was a fun staff report to write. In June of 2006, the city entered into an interlocal agreement with the City of Reno and the Nature Conservancy for some downstream river restoration projects. Those projects have been going on since, and we sit here today with a reduction in construction costs, and this amendment will reduce those costs overall by $1 million. Our proportionate share of the costs is about 31.4%. Under the terms of the original agreement, our portion would have been $822,472. Under this amended agreement that is before you today, our share will be reduced to $508,792 for a savings of about $315,000. I believe both of our partners have already agreed to this agreement. We're the last ones, and I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Questions, Ms. Ratty?
I wasn't here when this was approved, and I didn't see it in the staff report. What funding source does this come out of?
This is coming out of the Tumorph Capital Projects Fund.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I do have a public comment on this. Mr. Keith Ingram, come on up, sir. Have a seat and just state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Keith Ingram. I've been in Reno, Nevada since 1981. I don't know how relevant this is, but I've got an issue with the Nature Conservancy. I've got a little statement here. In November, December of 2010, while duck hunting, I'm a duck hunter, so it's kind of off somewhere away from your agenda, but it concerns me. On BLM land east of Mustang Bridge, I was approached by 2 Nature Conservancy employees, names unknown, told to leave. They couldn't hunt there. So apparently the Nature Conservancy condones fishing on the projects because I was told that I could fish there but not hunt there. No new agreement should be made until this problem is addressed and rectified. After contacting Endow game wardens about this incident, I was informed that if the problem does come up again with them trying to run me off the BLM property and bring a lawsuit against Nature Conservancy for harassment. I've had a McCarran Ranch and BLM land since I moved here in '81. I've been in contact with BLM employees, Story County Sheriff deputies, while hunting on that portion of the river, had no problems. And since my tax dollars are being used on these projects, I'm concerned about their Nature Conservancy's anti-hunting position, and I'd like assurance that hunting will be allowed on their future projects, same as fishing is. Because I feel very strongly about hunting. So that's that.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Questions, Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a question. I just want to have a comment on it that we're amending an existing agreement to get money back, so it's actually more advantageous to the citizens to actually amend this agreement because we get money back out of it, so that we're actually taking money here. So what we can do is we can ask if staff can take and get some question into the Conservancy and see what their stance on this issue is. We can be aware of it and get that to BLM to find out if we got a miscommunication between two different agencies on what can and what can't be done out there. Appreciate the comments, but I don't think we can do anything with this contract because this is one we actually make money off from.
Yeah, I just want to bring the subject up to one of the Nature Conservancy people, that there is an issue.
We can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Just a question. Were there people working where you were hunting? Could that have been the issue?
There were people working there. Not where I was hunting at, or further up the river towards the bridge. But it was just there wasn't any danger to them. But the main thing is they let people fish there but not hunt there. So
yeah, no, and I think we're all hunters here, but I just if they're working, maybe not all of us, but
most of us. Exactly, we're not. We should.
Yeah, we should be. I was just wondering if they asked you not to hunt or if they told you not to hunt.
They told me not to hunt.
Okay, and that's just my only question. I want to know if they were maybe working there and they were concerned. And have you contacted them since then?
I tried to contact. I looked in their phone book. No, not since then. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Mr. Lawson.
And I just want to say, as a hunter, also that bothers me because we have less and less places to hunt. So we'll look into it, as Mr. Schmidt says. We moving forward with this because we are saving money, but we will look into it in the future. And if you'll leave your name for us, and be happy to follow up with you.
We've got it.
I just want to bring it up.
Thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask a question about who owns that McCarran Ranch now? Is it the Nature Conservancy?
Yes.
Okay, so, I'm a hunter too, but I just wondered if they owned it, they could probably post it, and that may be the problem.
It is my belief that they purchased the McCarran Ranch.
Yeah, so the
and it's held in trust by the Conservancy, yes.
So it's no longer BLM or
It's not
public anymore. It could be, I don't know how that
be
works. Is the
private,
Nature Conservancy a 501c3? I don't even know. I mean, I don't want to get in the law, but I understand your problem. But I'm saying if they bought it, they may have posted it. So you might want to check that out with them.
And we'll check into it too, Mr. Ingram. So.
Okay, thank you.
There is a phone number on here where you can be reached, I see. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you wrote that down, Sean, and I'll give you this later. Okay, any questions? Any more questions on 6.2? Ms. Ratty.
I just want to say one of these kids is not like the others.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Anybody would like to make a motion? Mr. Lawson.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Mr. Schmidt.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Schmidt to approve agenda item 6.2. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, John.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
6.3, consideration and possible approval of resolution number 3196, a resolution renewing an intergovernmental agreement with the Washoe County Home Consortium. Mr. Rundle and Mr. Ornelas. Dynamic duo.
Good afternoon, Jim Rundle, Senior Planner, here to present a resolution for the City Council to consider entering into. It's a resolution to continue the agreement with the Washoe County and City of Reno for the Home Consortium. And that concludes my presentation, unless you want me to go into more.
Okay, questions? Mr. Kerrigan. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Ratty.
I don't know
Mr. Kerrigan.
a question. I was just going to make a motion, but if I'll wait.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Ratty, second by Mr. Schmidt.
I didn't second it yet.
Okay, Mr. Kerrigan. Somebody want to second this?
I'll second it but I have a
Discussion,
question.
yeah, okay. Okay, it's been moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan. Any further discussion? Mr. Kerrigan. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think you were all at the meeting with Reno,
Yes.
correct? And I'm not sure exactly what they did at their council meeting, but did they not approve this but come back and say that they wanted the board to be different? Is that what they were looking at?
Yes.
Okay, can you just put that on the record?
Yeah, I believe that Reno City Council is considering taking the city manager off of the panel that would vote to approve projects before it goes to the governing board, and have that replaced with a council or mayor, with one of the elected officials.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How does this, or does this correlate at all with the Human Services Consortium? I know that that's in real flux of what's happening there. Is there any chance of paralleling these two things going parallel soon?
Councilman Schmidt, Armando Ornelas for the record. I don't believe at this juncture that we would be able to co-join them. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, is this in danger of falling apart as a human services where, people say, well, I'm just not going to fund this anymore. I'm not taking my money, I'm going to go play ball elsewhere?
No, I don't believe so. I think basically this is a direct allocation from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to the consortium. And so that funding is not dependent on the jurisdictions, the individual jurisdictions providing funding.
Thank you.
Ms. Ratty.
I'm intrigued by Councilman Kerrigan's comments. So what would be the process for changing the makeup of the board, since we're all agreeing to this now?
We would have to bring this back. There would have to be a new agreement negotiated and brought back, but we were under a time pressure. Basically, there had been an automatic renewal provision in the agreement, and finally this year HUD said you can't do that. You need to actually take it back to the jurisdictions. And so if in fact the three jurisdictions wanted to amend how the process functioned and how the consortium functioned, then a new agreement would have to be, but we need to do this essentially before the end of the current fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, gentlemen. 6.4, consideration and possible approval of the third amendment to an agreement with Great Basin Land and Water regarding purchase of water rights pursuant to the Truckee River Water Quality Settlement Agreement. Mr. Hummel.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, again, Andy Hummel, Acting Utility Manager for the record. This item is a third amendment with Great Basin Land and Water. The agreement originally started in July of 1997 with the Local Government Oversight Committee, which consists of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. This amendment will allow us to go for an additional 3 years to finish up the program. We are very near the expenditure limit that was originally agreed to, but got a little bit of cleanup work to do still. So with that, take any questions.
Questions? Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is the $2,000 a month, is that just Sparks portion?
No, that is the entire cost, but that is, the fund is through Sparks. It was basically through Tumwharf, through connection fees and user fees, and that has been fully collected.
So they're just working for Sparks then on that? They're not working for Reno and Washoe County at the same time? Or
Yeah,
they're working for all three governments?
It's a total of $2,000 a month for all three. Tumwharf was the collecting point for that fund,
so
between the three agencies.
So what is our total portion of that?
I'd have to go back to the original agreement. I believe it was a 1/3 split.
1/3 split?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
Move to approve the third amendment to the agreement with Great Basin Land and Water.
Mr. Lawson. Second. Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve 6.4, amendment with agreement with Great Basin Land and Water. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Andy. 6.5, consideration and possible approval to award a street sweeping scheduled and routine bid 1011-009 to Contract Sweeping Services, Inc. Mr. Kreutz.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martini and members of the City Council. For the record, Neil Kreutz, Director of Community Services. Here today with an item to privatize routine street sweeping for the City of Sparks. This goes back to direction from the council to look at privatization citywide, where we were looking to make sure that we were getting the best bang for our buck, so to speak, and the taxpayers' money that we were investing in doing various items within the city. As the management team within community service and with the support of the city manager, we felt that this one would be a pretty straightforward and very quantifiable, identifiable level of service to go out and seek bids on. So we did that, and the level of service, which is what we have provided for this fiscal year to date, is to sweep arterial streets once every other week, medians, islands, and residential streets every 60 days, and then trails and pathways twice a year within the city. And so we went out to bid, received 7 bids, compared that to what it costs us to provide those services today. And when you put our bid within the other 7, we came in 5th lowest of the 8 total. And we are looking to save about $108,000 a year if you do approve this contract going forward. And we would achieve that savings by reducing the staffing and community services within the maintenance division of that by two people. And that goes with an additional 2 people that we would reduce it by as part of the SSSI. You'll recall that we were going in maintenance from a total of 9 crew supervisors down to a total of 7 as we implemented the pooled staffing. So if you add those 2 positions to this 2, there will be a total of 4 staff reductions within community services maintenance. And so there are the potential for layoffs to need to occur to implement this savings. But I would point out that we have already received notification of 3 retirements, and actually one of those has already taken place. One gentleman has already departed. And what we are seeing is that some of our folks that are quite close to retirement wanted to have that in place before their bargaining unit took the 6% pay cut starting the first full pay period in July. So I anticipate that there may be more activities like that between now and the end of the month. But I do want to have it just above board that approval of this may lead to one additional layoff within community services. One of the questions that I was asked at the last city council meeting was to look for possibly utilizing that person in another area. And the first place that I looked was within the funding source that we pay for our street sweeping with, and that's out of our storm drain fund. The logic being that we want to keep that material out of the storm drain. So there's our source of funding. And we really do 4 basic measures within the storm drain fund in terms of maintenance. And the first one being snow removal. And that's something that we budget. Our budget has changed in terms of labor hours over the year. This past year we budgeted 100 labor days for snow removal, and we actually utilized 40 of those. So in terms of snow removal, we had a fairly light year. But then we budget for storm drain cleaning, ditch maintenance, and then street sweeping as well. And in looking at our ability to provide service in each of those, the three remaining categories, I do believe that we have, minimum staffing without the additional body. So we are not in a position where we would look to retain that person. We would look to enjoy the savings via underspending our base salary budget. But then in terms of looking broader, to give you a wider palette to choose from, when I looked around the rest of the Community Services Department for places that we do have critical staffing shortfalls, and the first one that came to mind that comes to the top of the list is code enforcement. We've had this discussion many times. We're down to a single code enforcement officer for the entire city. So I think that is the greatest need for staffing within the Community Services Department. However, that said, code enforcement is not paid for with storm drain funds. So if that's a direction that you would look to go with the additional body, we would have to find some, general fund budget authority to do that with, on the order of the $108,000 that we're saving. The second need that we have in community services is in our garage. We're not critically short there with maintaining the city's fleets, but we are struggling. And again, that would come largely out of the general fund as we burden the departments that receive those services with those costs. And with that, one other point. We are proposing to have this contract go into effect July 1st of this year, and so that we start the new year with the new process in place. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, Mr. Smith?
Neil, how many street sweeping vehicles does the city own?
We just received a new one, and we have a total of 5. And we just received a new one and are retiring one, and actually have another local government that's interested in picking that one up. But we will keep that fleet of 5 because there are 2 other types, of street sweeping that we will continue to do. And the first is the fall leaf pickup. Okay. The majority of the leaves that fall in the city end up in the street, and we need to pick those up before they block the storm drains. And then the second one is the street sweeping that we do following a storm, where we put sand out for traction. We have to go out within a certain amount of time because of the air qualities we have in the Truckee Meadows. And
that was my next question. How about the parking lots at GURP and everything? Do we sweep those?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Neil, you said that we have 3 retirements that have been posted or and since
yes, sir,
that are going to take effect before July 1st.
Yes, sir.
In our budget that was approved a couple weeks ago, we have 3 positions that we plan on people leaving the city on, but I believe those 3 positions are in the general fund and not in this particular fund. Is that correct?
The funding for the 3 who are leaving is spread across multiple funds within the city, partially across the storm drain, partially across sewer, and then some into the general fund.
So how much of these 3 leaving do you know would affect the general fund?
I'd have to come back to you with that information.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Ratty?
I again, was opposed to this at the last meeting and will continue to be opposed to it. If I understand correctly, I understand there's retirement, so it may not be that body, but there's still 2 positions that will come off the books.
If this is approved, yes.
If this is approved?
Yes.
And again, going into the contracting of services, I really felt like I made it clear that the way I would support that is if we were improving the service levels in another area of the city at the same time. From a bigger picture standpoint, I still feel like laying off more local employees who have salaries here and bringing in a company from California doesn't make sense in the long run, even if there's some short-term savings. And I still am concerned about our surge capacity when we have big storms or we have, when you have more of the street sweeping that needs to be done because we have more snow, more sanding, those kinds of situations. So I still was hoping for a better alternative, don't see it, and won't be supporting this.
Mr. Lawson?
Help me to understand this, Neil, dumb it down for the football player. We already have eliminated 2. This will eliminate 2 additional.
We will
and
be
we have 3 retirement, so we're going to lose 1
there's the potential to lose, yes, one additional. We actually haven't laid off any of the 4 positions that I talked about yet. I'm trying to line all of that up to go into effect the end of this month. Okay, but we're planning the 2 in terms of the reduction of crew supervisors, and then there would be 2 additional if this is approved today. So then so there's the 4, and if you subtract the 3 that have already notified, then yes, that leaves us with the potential of 1 layoff.
So barring anyone else retiring, we will lose 1 more employee?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's just give a follow-up with Councilwoman Zarati's question in regards to, this is a California contractor, low bid?
Yes, sir.
Fully licensed and bonded in the state before he submitted the bid?
Dan, can you ask Dan Marin, our purchasing manager, to answer that question?
Yes, Councilman Schmidt. Dan Marin, Contracts and Risk Manager for the record. With respect to this service, there is no specific licensing required in the state because it is a maintenance service. They did provide all the required bonds. I can tell you that with respect to their reference checks, they are very well financed, a very well-established company, do the service in several different communities. With respect to them being an out-of-state company, I can tell you that of the bidders that we had, there were only 2 that were actually based in Nevada. All the rest were California firms. We had requests for bid documents from as far away as Pennsylvania.
Who were the 2?
The 2 that are locally based are United Site Services, who are based in Reno, and ReliaCore, who's based in Sparks. They placed 3rd and 6th, respectively.
In any of the bid specs at all, did we call for wages and salaries or anything like that that had to be paid on the job? Since this is more than $100,000, is it considered a prevailing wage contract?
No, sir. It's a maintenance contract, so it is not subject to NRS 338 that calls out prevailing wage. We did not specify a minimum wage on this job, just that they comply with typical labor law rules with respect to wages.
It's a 1-year contract, right? We're going to have people monitoring the situation. We'll know probably before the snow starts flying whether we got an issue here or not.
Correct. It is a 1-year contract. There are options for extensions if we choose to. But again, based on the reference checks and their experience, we don't expect to see problems. With respect to them being out of state, even before this contract was scheduled for approval with this body, they went ahead and leased property in Sparks and set up a yard because they anticipate being able to pick up other business. I fully expect, based upon our bid results, we'll see inquiries from other public agencies in the area also looking to do similar.
If you could get to the council their address and everything where they are located in Sparks now, so we can have that information.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Ratty.
I would just have to suggest that there's one other local bid, and that was the bid from the city itself, and that would keep the jobs local.
Yes.
Is that any additional questions?
Mr. Lawson.
Did I read in there that there's going to be a GPS unit on their vehicles?
Yes.
So we'll be able to track what they've done just by that?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Big brother is watching. Any other questions? Looking for a motion. Mr. Smith.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second? Mr. Kerrigan.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan to approve agenda item 6.5 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes 4-1. Ms. Ratty is a nay.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. 6.6, consideration and possible approval of resolution number 3191 designating certain employees as executive. Ms. Severson.
I need the tall chair.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Chris, are you going to go over all of these at
I am.
once? Because I think they're all the same, aren't they?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going to cover all of them, and then we'll come back and vote on them individually.
I am.
Thank you.
Actually, what I would like to do is to start with a preface to all of the resolutions. I know that there's been a great interest by the City Council. And, oh, by the way, Chris Severson, Employee and Customer Relations Manager, for the record. I know there's been great interest by the council on the developing scenarios with the health plan, so I wanted to provide you an update and sort of where we are before we get into each specific resolution. Per the City Council request, the City is pursuing the implementation of a sustainable health care plan in lieu of a 6% pay reduction necessary to balance the fiscal year 11-12 budget. The Health Care Committee has met and reviewed the City initial proposal, and based upon their requests, we are meeting tomorrow and next week and as necessary to review their requests. The City has met with all business units, bargaining units for represented employees, as well as employees covered by resolution. Each was presented the request for implementation of a high deductible health plan or the 6% reduction in pay and pay-related benefits. Both or all proposals included sharing future increases and decreases of the rate increase charged by PERS that is planned to be implemented July 18th of 2011. The action before you today is regarding our employee resolutions, and it's necessary for a couple of reasons. One is to implement the employee share of the PERS increase effective July 18th, 2011. Second is the removal of the second 7.5% pay reduction scheduled for the first pay period of July 2011, and to include the intent of a high deductible health plan. This is a 2-month resolution. It's to allow us to give time, per the employee's request, to really finalize the health plan. Even though the employees by the resolutions don't get to vote on it, I think it's very fair of them to say, we want to know what it is before we're required to be covered under it. I will say that in my zeal to implement the paperless system that Ms. Patterson wants to employ on City Council agendas, the resolutions that you have before them are not signed by legal. I understand that we would need to get them approved by legal as to content prior to actual implementation. So if you will allow me that. Mr. Adams raised a concern that they were not signed by Cheryl Eiding, who is normally the person that would sign these. So I would like to make sure that we have that before we actually process them. Should the health care plan also included in the resolutions is should the health care plan not be able to be implemented, that we would go back and implement a 6% reduction in pay and pay-related benefits for the entire fiscal year. The health care plans to be presented to the Health Care Committee tomorrow will be comprised of several key elements. The first is a cap on city spending of $967.50 per employee per month, or $11,610 per year. That's something that the city feels is important for the sustainability of the city, is to provide a cap on our expenses. There are some language in the proposals that we will work with the Health Care Committee on potentially some inflationary factors on that, and that has not been finalized yet. We also have come forth with 2 options for employees to consider. And Mr. Adams, if you'll indulge me and pass them down. And for that, I'm going to plan this ahead, but can I get assistance in putting this on the overhead?
Go ahead if you need it. I got another one.
I'm not sure how to do it. There are also copies in the lobby for anyone who would also like to have copies of this information. I think Steve put them out in the lobby. Nope. A little bit. Probably much easier to read the copy you have in front of you than to follow. And I also have my trusty finance director somewhere close to answer any financial questions. In looking at the numbers and looking what the city was trying to accomplish with a cap on healthcare expenses, and at the advice of our insurance brokers, we have come up with a 2-pronged plan. One plan is the implementation of a high deductible health plan. The other is to allow a modified current plan and to allow employees the option on an individual basis to stay in the current plan and pay the difference between the high deductible health plan and the plan that they would stay with. The reason I use the word modified is I believe that the Healthcare Committee is interested in implementing some modifications to the current plan, and we'll be talking to them about that tomorrow. But what you'll see on the document in front of you is the current health care plan cost in column 1, and you'll see that it's about $13,455 per employee per year. The high deductible health plan, you'll see, is zero cost to employees on a monthly basis, and you'll see the rates for the composite rates. And I should take a minute to explain composite rate. A composite rate means that we take the entire cost of the health plan and divide it by the number of people in the health plan. So we get a per enrollee, if you will, cost. And right now, our per enrollee cost is $11.21. We're proposing to go to $9.67 and with funding $10.92. That's a month.
What's that with funding, you said?
I'm sorry?
You said you...
The funding.
What did you say?
Oh, with the matching, with the funding into the high deductible health plan. You should also keep in mind that...
Wait a minute. What?
I'm sorry.
Good.
You said 1092, but I think here it says 967.50.
It's $967.50 monthly. If you add the funding that we would put into the health savings account for the employees, it would be $1,092.
Is that on here?
Is that?
No,
am I
that's what I
looking
don't
at a
see on
different?
here.
You're looking at a different one.
All right. Let me take this back. I'm sorry. It's 842 and 967.
Yeah, there you go.
Apologize. Or $10,000 and $11,000 per employee per year. You'll see the deductibles right now in our current plan are $200 and $400. Going to a composite rate in the high deductible health plan, it would be $2,500 regardless of whether you are an individual or a family. And that $2,500 would be 1 or 10 people. So it's all combined to a $2,500 deductible level. Out-of-pocket maximums, and this is where you would see the employees pick up their portion of the plan. The out-of-pocket maximums under the composite high deductible health plan is $5,950 per year. If you look at the health HSA funding, the city is proposing to fund the high deductible health plan at $2,500 or the full deductible amount in year 1, and then $1,500 a year going forward. We're also proposing a sick leave conversion ability for those employees who have sick leave, that they could convert up to 40 hours a year, and it's based on cashing out 80 hours at 50%. I don't want to get too detailed, but a cash out where they can cash out a portion of their sick leave and put it in the high deductible health plan account, should they so decide to do that. So, also, there is an IRS contribution limit of $3,050.
Mr. Lawson, go ahead.
Yep.
What's the reasoning behind you cash out 80 to get 40?
Actually, if I could go a little bit farther into the 80-40, it's 80-40 until you hit the sick leave conversion tables in each of the contracts or resolutions. Once you hit those conversion tables, you would go by the conversion rate. So it starts at like 10 years or 20 years, depending on your contract or resolution, and you would be able to convert into the health savings account whatever sick leave conversion rate you would be at should you terminate. So it kind of graduates the longer you've been with the city. This is just part of the proposal. We believe that the sick leave is a very large liability on the sick leave books, and we'd rather cash it out at a lower rate now than to carry it forward.
Okay. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but
That's okay.
it is what it is.
We're still going to be discussing it with the healthcare committee.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
So, Chris, what's the total of sick leave they can accumulate until a cap? Does it cap?
There's different resolutions and different contracts have different caps.
Okay, give me one.
Well, I believe fire is unlimited.
Okay, give me another.
Off the top of my head, I don't know one. I can't recall. I don't have the numbers. Let's say 3,000 or
Hours?
Hours. And what employees can do in most cases is take those hours and convert them into a sick leave conversion plan to be used to pay for retiree medical benefits.
Okay. I think.
Okay, I think that's okay. This is complex.
As an option to,
Really complicated.
did you have a question, Julie? Do I need to wait?
Yeah.
And I'm really not
Go
trying
ahead.
to be funny. Is there going to be an employee resource to help folks figure out in their personal situation what
Yeah.
would be the best scenario for them?
It is interesting that you bring that up because I firmly believe that education is the key. And what we're prepared to do is to meet with each employee individually. I have in my office records of what they spent last year on their medical, and I can run different scenarios with them individually to show under the high deductible health plan, here's what you would spend, and under the current plan, here's what you would spend. So absolutely, yes.
Does that
And
include
I
the
think it
council
has
and
to
mayor?
do. Absolutely.
Okay, good.
And because I do think it is a very individual decision and individual plan. And the only way to understand it fully is to look at your own expenses.
And then it's an individual opt-out, or it's an entire bargaining unit opt-out?
We, in this proposal, and we've really come to believe that it would be an individual.
Okay.
And one thing of note that I didn't include in your packet, but I have run these numbers 6 ways from Sunday, as I'm sure that you can imagine. And I looked at healthcare trends last year, and I actually ran the initial scenario of the $1,500 match against what employees spent last year. And the way that it works out, and I don't want to get, again, too complicated, but the high deductible health plan with the matching, when you take the average salary of our employees and the average health care that they would spend under the high deductible health plan, 85% of employees, 6% pay cut would be more than what they would pay under the high deductible health plan.
And is there a particular employee group or like salary line where that changes, or is it?
I'm sure there is, and it is at the lower ranges.
So the lower ranges have a higher percentage?
The one thing I didn't do is I did not correlate the healthcare plan expenses to income group. So that's the one thing I have not correlated.
Okay.
What I did is I took healthcare spending bands and tried to figure it out. One thing also should be noted that I think it's on the bottom of your sheet, 83% of our employees currently have plus one, plus children, plus family coverage. And so the high deductible health plan that we designed is, if you will, a little more family friendly to have that combined deductible at the composite rate. We could have designed a plan that said if you're single, you get a $2,000 match. If you're family, you get a $4,000 match, and your out-of-pockets go up proportionately. But we felt this is the best program for most of the employees, should they choose this plan. Now, to look at the modified plan, if you would, or the current
You
plan.
got questions, Mr. Kerrigan?
Chris, on the bottom it says option out,
Yes.
and it says 60% of the premium rate. Is that 60%? What premium rate are we looking at?
It would be the 11,610.
So you're saying
Per year.
if somebody opts out of medical, dental, and vision, the city will pay them $672 a month?
It's it's 6,000, it would be 60% of 1110.
Yeah, I
Jeff?
just did it, 672.
How much?
Yeah, something 607, something
Yes.
like that, right? Or 722 or
Yes.
something. To do what?
To get their own coverage,
Or
go on their spouse's plan and pay for that coverage?
okay, so it's not a medical savings account.
No, it is not. That money would be paid out to them quarterly, to do with what they will. I call it the take it and run. If you've got a
Well,
better
no,
plan
because
out there.
if I'm an individual that has a spouse that has a medical coverage and I do not want to take the city's, if I opt out, the city's going to pay me $720 a month to opt out of ours, right?
Is that, I haven't done the monthly figure. I'm sorry, Mike. If you've done the monthly, but you get the
I
concept,
don't know.
yes.
Let me just do.
It's about 500 something.
No, it's 600. It's 600.
580.50.
It's 60% of 1121. 60% of 1,000 is 600. So it's like 672.
No, it would be 60% of the 967.
967.
Oh,
You're looking at
okay,
the
I just
premium.
asked it. You said 1121.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. It's still a lot
That
of
was
money.
per year.
Okay, so it's 500. So if it's 967, so I could go on my
Yes.
spouse's and still get $500 from the city
Yes,
to do it what I want.
yes.
Providing what?
We still have a requirement that employees demonstrate that they do have health care coverage.
Right.
No, I understand that, but if I just say I'm
Yeah.
on with my spouse, they still
Yeah.
get it.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Bonus.
Well, and I can
Gets them
see
off our
Julia's
time.
point. Everybody individually needs to take a look at that, because there's some people in here that would really, I mean, if I had a spouse that had, insurance coverage and I could make $500 more, I don't know why I wouldn't want to do that.
Exactly.
I'm just, that's just
I'm not
Mike
gonna
Kerrigan
disagree with
saying. Okay.
It's double bonus, one for the city, one for the employee.
So if you look at the plan, sorry, Julia. If you look at the plan and you want to stay on the current plan or some modified plan that the healthcare committee would come up with working off of our initial plan, it would cost an employee $18.92 a month to stay on the current plan. It would cost a family $277.99. And what that does is it makes the two plans even. You're either on the high deductible or you're on the regular, your choice. The key here is that the city is going to cap the cost. That's, I think, where we got to, is we would rather have everybody on the high deductible health plan, but if it makes more sense for you individually to stay on the current plan and pay the difference, so be it.
Mr. Smith?
Chris, just to be clear, the city's going to pick up the tab for the first year and then $1,500 the second year?
Yes.
So they will not have to put any contributions in the first year?
They don't have to, they can. We will put in $2,500. An individual can put up $3,050, and presumably that would be either the money they're putting in their flexible spending account now that they could roll into here, or cashing out of the.
And that just makes their account grow.
Correct.
That they can use
And a
it.
family can put in $6,100.
Okay.
So a family could have the ability to put in a lot more to cover their needs.
And then let's just say they retire and they have that money goes right back to them, right?
It's always their money, whether they retire, whether they leave the city, at any point, that money is theirs.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Ratty?
If you take the contribution to the HSA, it's tax deferred. If you take the opt-out, it's taxable?
Yes. And is it PERSable, Jeff? We did decide that it's PERSable or not.
So it's not considered income?
PERSable. It's not PERSable.
Considered income by the feds, not by the state?
Yes, taxable. Yes. Yes. So I wanted to, first of all, before we went to the resolutions, answer the questions. One point we haven't covered quite yet is retirees. I believe that we have mentioned to the council that retirees up until December 31st of 2011 will be grandfathered under the current plan that they're on. And going forward, they would have these two options going forward, I believe. So we'll take care of the ones that are there.
Chris, are these numbers pretty well solid, or
As solid as we can possibly get them, yes.
when can we go and say this is the plan?
Well,
That
this
seems
is
to
the
be a
complication.
frustration right now that I'm hearing.
This is the complication. Per our bargaining units, we are required to work with the healthcare committee on benefit plan design. We also are required to negotiate with the bargaining units or the negotiating teams on benefit costs. Benefits are a mandatory part of negotiations. So we're trying to work jointly down two paths, one working with the bargaining groups and one working with the healthcare committee to try to get them to one point. The resolutions that you have in front of you, we would like to implement these as soon as, the 2 months, once we, it's our intent to have the plan done by the next couple of meetings so that we know that our employees not covered by bargaining unit know what the plan will look like. Whether the unions will choose to go on it or not is subject to negotiations.
That seemed to be the question for a couple of bargain units that I've talked to.
They want to see the numbers.
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah, of course.
They have
I
nothing
think
to
we're
talk
getting.
about.
I think we're getting really close
Okay.
to the numbers.
Yeah, why would they not want to see the numbers then? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, you're saying that 17% of the people are single in the city of Sparks.
They have single coverage.
They have single coverage. Would you consider this a penalty of being single? To change a plan?
It does incur a higher deductible to a single person. I don't know that I would say it's a penalty. I would say that over the years, Numerous times, both at the bargaining tables and in human resources, we've heard complaints by single people that we were subsidizing families, that it would be better if we had one single rate that we paid to each employee regardless of their status, and this is our attempt to do that on the composite rate. Because if you were single, say I didn't have anybody covered, the city would pay X number of dollars for my health care, where if you had a full family, we would pay considerably more on yours. So this is our attempt to sort of even that out.
And I understand the whole system. I'm having trouble understanding where you take one segment of the population and say, well, you know, before you had a $200 deductible and you're going to go up 12 times now your deductible, where you're telling a family that you had a $400 deductible, but you're only going to go up 6 times. So you doubled, if you were single, what you had to pay a deductible.
I understand.
Thank you.
Mr. Carey.
I just wanted to comment that the numbers that you have before you represent the position that the city's management would pursue with the Health Benefits Committee and all of its bargaining groups. I do not foresee these numbers changing except based upon good faith discussions with the Benefits Committee and any associated labor groups. So this does represent the management recommendations in a final form pending input from health care benefits as well as from bargaining groups at this point in time. So I just wanted to emphasize, for the benefit of Mr. Lawson's question, these are the numbers that we intend to take forward.
Ms. Reddy.
A couple questions. First question is, so the modified current plan is the difference between what the current health care plan costs and the cost of the high deductible plan, but you said it was capped. So each year at the beginning of the year, open enrollment period, or whenever, you're going to set what that difference is?
Yes, based on plan experience.
And then is there a built-in cost of living increase for the cap, or how? Because
the
assumption would be it get more expensive each year.
The assumption is that healthcare goes up. It doesn't usually go down.
But it wasn't capped before.
It wasn't.
So it gets
capped
more expensive
before.
for the employee each year.
And that's exactly why we're trying to work on this plan. We have entertained language on some cost of living increases in the plan. We haven't finalized those numbers as yet. But there is an intent to look at something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, just real quick on the high deductibles. When you look at the deductibles for the individual and family at $2,500, you see on the bottom that the first year it's going to be 100% paid for both.
The deductible, yes.
From the city, right?
Yes.
And then after that, it's $1,500.
Yes.
So basically, after the first year, it's going to be $1,000 deductible, correct? Per family or per individual. Isn't that correct? It goes up.
Yes. That the employee would have to pick up, yes.
Right, and then the out-of-pocket max stays the same at almost like
correct.
$6,000. And what is it going to stay the same plan that we have? Is it an 80-20 split right now?
Yes, that's an interesting point. After the $2,500 deductible has been met, the prescriptions would go back to the way that prescriptions are handled now. So you would go back to the $5, $15, and $40 prescription level, and they would be 80-20 as long as you utilize plan providers.
Right.
So there is that differentiation between plan providers and non-plan providers, but I like to think everybody's going to use a plan provider.
Right, but that maximum with 20% stops at $6,000.
Yes, $5,950.
$5,950. I'll just round it up. Okay, thank you.
And those rates are set by the IRS, so those rates could go up depending on what the IRS. I'm sorry, confusing. I was talking about the contribution rates. I apologize.
Right, no problem.
Ms. Ratty.
So if there's a mass exodus from the plan because the options look favorable to majority of employees, but perhaps if you're a high health care user, it's not favorable to you, would you anticipate an increase in our rates for the current health care plan because it's a smaller number of people and do we risk our self-insurance status at all?
It's
because
harder
a
to
small
manage
pool.
the risk in a smaller pool.
Well, especially if the people who stay on are the most expensive.
Right. We have not been able to factor that in yet, but it could be a factor, yes. Until we see how it shakes out.
Right, but if you sweeten the pot so much that if you're a low health care user I mean, I don't think this is a big stretch, that all of the low healthcare users exit, leaving just the high healthcare users in the plan. You're going to have a harder to insure pool.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Smith.
Chris, is this a calendar year program, or is it start in July if we decide to do this?
Interesting. Right now, our plan year is a fiscal year, but it's our intent to move our calendar year and our plan year to be the same. Okay. Because anytime we want to make a health plan change, it gets really confusing because we want to do it in July, but you can't with deductibles and copays and all that. So it's our intent to start a new plan year in January, and that be our plan.
So no matter what happens, it's going to stay what it is right now until January?
Yes.
Okay.
And also one thing, employees do have the option each year to go back and forth between the two plans. So if they go to the high deductible health plan and they don't like it, they can change, or vice versa. So they do have the chance, and the opt-out is a once-a-year option as well.
Okay. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, with all 5 of these, I think there's 5 of them, 5 different bargaining groups, have they all individually voted on this package, or is this where you're going to be doing this? They've already accepted the 7.5. That was a year ago vote, or did they not vote on that either?
Employees covered under a resolution don't vote.
We vote for them.
We vote for them. You vote for them. We have met with all of the business units, and that's actually why we're asking for the 2-month shorter term, is so that they can see it before we implement it. So we've met with them, and they've given their input.
Okay. Now, you're saying that the bargaining groups have?
No, the unrepresented groups have as well.
The unrepresented groups have met with you and feel comfortable moving this forward?
Some like it, some don't. I can't say feel comfortable. They did not feel comfortable unless we had a plan defined. They have said that knowing what the plan will be will increase their comfort level.
Have they seen this?
They have not seen that yet. That's why we've asked for the 2-month extension, so that this can be incorporated.
But this is in the 2-month extension.
Yes.
So you're asking me to say, something that top management and people in the city, probably 150 employees, have not seen this document yet. You're asking me to go ahead and say, I want you to vote on this and tell them they got this option or that's it, without any input.
Mr. Smith, the key thing here is we're asking for you to extend existing resolutions for a 2-month period for us to continue the information flow to unrepresented employees. So you will be asked in this extension to give us the time to take the information that's presented today and broadcast that, work individually with employees. In terms of going to a vote, the city's budget was based upon a 6% reduction in pay or a change in the health care benefits of 6%. And that is the direction that the staff is following. We found ourselves dealing with a very complex healthcare plan change and have taken the input that we have sought from all employees in meetings, and will continue to do that, to take that into account, to put on the table tomorrow our best numbers in a final form to go forward. We will still be listening to employees and bringing back a plan which will be subject to good faith discussions with employees who are unrepresented and full collective bargaining protection for those that are in unions. And those must continue on their due course of law. I would caution the council, the 2-month extension is in the benefit of many of the employees covered by these resolutions, as they had been part of a 2-year resolution where a 7.5% wage reduction would have been sought. So we are asking for the council to give us a 2-month extension to implement the 6% reduction either in wages or in benefits. And we believe the key to many employees will be understanding of this new health care plan, and we see it has tremendous options for the employees, But most importantly, it achieves a cap in your health care, which is very key to our sustainable future as an organization.
If I may respond to that, and I would have no problem with any of these if I was voting on a 2-month extension of a contract. But what I'm voting on is a 2-month extension of a contract with changes. I got in here, I've got acting city manager pay changes, I've got PERS changes, I've got healthcare changes. I'm not voting on an extension of a contract. I'm voting on an extension of contract for 2 months with substantial changes on it. And I have issues with that, especially since, you know, my top management staff hasn't had a chance to review those changes on things and provide feedback. That's my issue. If I was voting on a straight 2-month change, I've got 7.5%, correct? If I extended the original contract 2 months, I've got a 7.5% reduction. I actually have more reduction in that than I do this one.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Schmidt, one note I would say is many of the changes that we are proposing in this healthcare plan came from the employee groups themselves. One keynote being that the funding wasn't enough and we needed to front load it at the beginning of the year. So we have taken input from the employees in considering these issues.
And we are, to your point, I did not in any way mean to answer your question that those resolutions in their entirety are presented to you. They do represent the changes that are recommended by the management of the city for all of the resolutions that you have before you. And I know in case of the executives, they are not a surprise. They have been shared and folks are aware of the changes.
I'm just extending the frustration that I'm being told. You know, is that it doesn't feel like there's been information passed around. You know, our staff doesn't get to see what we look at when we're up here voting on it. And I understand the reason why that is and how it happened, but I'm still uncomfortable with it right now. Thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I'm more worried about the city attorney not signing off on it first. And I don't know why we're pressed for time. I mean, why are we in a hurry? We have one other city council meeting in June, correct?
Yes, we do.
So if we continue this, we'll get the city attorney to okay it, and also that'll give you a couple of weeks to talk to the groups.
Yes, we actually met with Ms. Lighting as late as Thursday afternoon, and we were not aware that she had legal concerns going forward. But
yeah, that's
that.
my biggest concern is because, you know, maybe the city attorney will say they don't like it, and so if he does, you know, or whatever it may be. So I'd much rather continue this till our next city council meeting to allow the city attorney time to take a look at it, and also that gives you enough time, I think, to talk to some of the executive. Well, everybody that's not covered by contract, I guess.
Mr. Schmidt.
Just a point of irony is that city attorney's office is covered under this agreement, and they haven't seen it to review it and sign off on it.
However, it was at their request that we do the 2-month extension.
I understand that, but I'm just saying they got to sign off, and they haven't seen the agreement that we're here to vote on.
If I could just make one clarifying point. Not
Please.
To beat a dead horse. We are not asking you to vote on the final health care plan today. We're asking you to vote on a 2-month extension to allow us to work out the details of that plan.
Further questions? Chet, go ahead.
Ms. Eiding just responded to my email not more than 3 minutes ago. She said that she would approve as to form and did not physically sign off on it, but based upon some discussions last week, indicated that she could do that.
Thank you.
Okay, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So what's the pleasure of the council? You want to go over each one of these? You want to consider moving this to the 27th? What, Mr. Lawson?
I just have one question for, maybe this is for Sean, is there anything lost or gained by waiting till our next council meeting to vote on this? John?
To a degree, we would appreciate moving forward today to maximize the period of time that we have to use under the resolution for negotiations. It also places a burden between the 27th of the month and the pay period that would begin and be paid in the first full pay period of July to understand the impacts of this. Hence why we chose to do our resolutions at this meeting. You could, at your pleasure, continue this item, but I would just be aware that it may generate some overhead in terms of payrolls and those types of things.
And just so I'm very clear, this is the plan.
Yes, sir.
Pending some changes that the healthcare.
Yes, along with the.
These are the numbers that are going to be put forth as the plan.
Yes, sir. This is the plan that has been arrived at as the recommendation of the management team, including your insurance brokers, to effect a sustainable health care plan. The numbers to date have moved based upon trying to put forth the city's best informed and articulated plan, which is what you have in front of you. I believe the next 2 months will be very key to looking individually to each employee and garnering that action. In the end, what this plan does provide is an ability to stay on the current health care plan with its necessary modifications to achieve a 6% reduction in overall cost of health care, a favorable high deductible health plan, and failing any change in the health care plan, you would still need to seek the 6% reduction in other ways in order to preserve our budget for the year. But these are the final numbers.
Mr. Smith.
Well, I'd just say that if any council member asks for continuation, that I would support that because of their concerns. So I'll defer to Mr. Kerrigan.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Well, the city attorney just had answered my question. They have no problem with it. I have no problem with it. So now I got to get back to ask the question: what happens to everybody that we put on this for in July and August, pay wise, healthcare wise? What happens?
Nothing. What this does is it eliminates the second 7.5%.
So basically, what we're doing is taking away the 7.5%. Isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, but you are also implementing half of the PERS increase.
And that's what I'm saying. So the two things that are going to happen is there's 7.5% that they have been giving back for the last 2 years goes away. 50-50 split on PERS goes into effect, and they get to take a look at the health care and take a look at that because it's not going to get implemented until January 1st anyway, right?
A correction to your statement. The first year of the 7.5%, which was taken last year, will remain in effect. Yeah. The resolution had a second 7.5%, which was scheduled to start July 1. So
yeah, I meant the new one. There was going to be a 7.5% on top of the 7.5%.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's just a clarification of what you meant.
Right. Okay. That's what I meant to say.
Ms. Ratty.
And then, if there were, let's just taking this to its ultimate conclusion, if there were a bargaining unit or somebody who doesn't accept the health care plan, and we have to go to layoffs. Well, what I read in here, let me rephrase this. What I read in here was that the 6%, if it ended up being 6% pay instead of savings in healthcare, it would be retroactive to July 1. Yep. So the city stays whole. Yep. So how do you make layoffs retroactive if that's the ultimate solution?
I believe my understanding is that we have requested the implementation of a healthcare plan for 6% plus the PERS, half of the PERS increases, and that the city manager's been authorized to take whatever actions are necessary. So
6.6 through 6.9.
But to get the savings, you need. Oh, I see. Got it. I'm with you. So it might be more layoffs the longer it goes. Is basically to achieve the same savings.
Say that again.
To achieve the same savings.
I also think that this is a move which moves you away from layoffs related to balancing the budget, as you are putting in place a 6% pay reduction for next year and or a health care plan. So I would view it as you're moving unrepresented groups away from additional layoffs related to balancing the city's budget with bargaining groups That is the subject of collective bargaining, and I cannot answer your question in terms of what will need to occur in those groups as we must negotiate those changes.
Except for to say, and let me just ask this, that we still need to achieve the same amount of savings.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm confused now on some of the things, so I want to make sure the way I understand it is that effective July 1st, the 7.5% goes away, but the 6% comes into play from now until September 1st, or the time that they accept the insurance. So they get 1.5% of that 7.5% back, but they give that 1.5% on up July 1st because of the PERS. So there is no pay change net effect July 1st. The difference comes into play that sometime in the next 60 days, they decide whether they're going to continue with 6% reduction in pay, or the 6% comes in the form of a change in the health care plan.
Let me try and clarify that for you, Mr. Schmidt. 7.5% would be applied next fiscal year. At the beginning of these resolutions, we are enacting a 0.5% of PERS. So you would say that in round discussion numbers, 7.5 would be rolled back to 7. At some point, the health care to 7.5 to 7 is the half of the PERS that the employee would be paying next year. Am I incorrect?
It's actually 1.125%. So the
You're right.
7.5 to
So
6.5.
that takes it down to 6.5. Then you would look for the health care plan to come in, at which time there would be no need for further changes in anyone's actual wages, as the health care plan, either the modified current plan election or the high deductible plan, would take effect. Should that not occur with an unrepresented group, then you would impose the balance of the cut to the employee. So essentially, the wages can remain the same except for the PERS contribution, where our budget was built on asking all employees to pay half of the PERS rate increase for their group. So I think the math works very well in terms of giving back to our employees by changing from a health care plan which has a high degree of unsustainability and puts back the wages, while 6% or 7.5%, either one of those numbers is concrete. What is out of control is our annual health care costs. And I think that's fundamentally what we're trying to do with this offer from the city, is place our employees in a health care plan that won't drive them to further wage reductions or layoffs.
Okay, Mr. Kerrigan.
Okay, I have one last question. If a train leaves Denver heading east at 200 miles an hour, I'm sorry.
I'm really bad at math problems.
Carrots. Yeah. Well,
Like,
if there isn't any more
employees, I can
comment,
do
if there
it.
isn't any more comment, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve 66, 67, 68, 69, and 6.10.
Do we have a second? Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Kerrigan, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve 6.6 through 610. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes 4-1. Mr. Schmidt, no. Okay? Thanks, Chris, on explaining a very difficult and complicated set of circumstances, and hopefully we can move on in a couple months and get this done. Appreciate it.
My only other comment is I didn't do it alone. Mr. Crum was my partner in crime.
No wonder, that's why it's so
Well, let's
complicated.
get Jeff down here then.
He doesn't do anything that's not complicated. Okay, comments from the city council and city manager. Ms. Ratty.
I just wanted to, the reason I was a little bit late today was that I had the pleasure of attending the Nevada Women's Fund Women of Achievement luncheon today, where they recognized 63 outstanding women in this community, and sort of on theme with our presentations earlier this morning. It's all about women today. So I wanted to congratulate the Nevada Women's Fund. They've given thousands of women who were pursuing education scholarships, support a lot of nonprofits in town, and it was a fabulous event, and I was thrilled to be a part of it.
Okay. Mr. Lawson.
I want to put out a thank you to the Sparks Police Department. I got to do a ride-along with them on Friday night. Makes me really realize what qualified and wonderful people we have over there, and the ability to do their job and treat our citizens with the utmost respect. So I want to say thank you.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith.
I'll echo Mr. Lawson's comments because I did my ride along last week too, so good job.
Mr. Smith.
Okay. I'm just going to take a minute to thank all the Rotary members up here for their free fishing this weekend. And maybe, Ed, you can elaborate on the numbers and your experiences down there.
Go ahead, Ed. The Free Fishing Day event put on by Sparks Rotary, and I got to make sure I get all these sponsors in there. Nevada Bighorns, the Nevada chapter of Safari Club International, the Reno Rodeo Foundation, and others. Normally we have between 1,300 and 1,400 kids at the event that register, that we give fishing poles to and food and everything, and we feed them. We get the bounce house, the whole 9 yards. This year we had 2,125 registered children. We normally have about 3,000 to 3,500 people there. In addition to them, we had over 6,500 people. A totally free event put on by the great citizens of Sparks in this area, and it came off without a hitch. Nobody injured, maybe a couple fish hooks, that was about it. But other than that, a wonderful, wonderful event for the community, totally free. Didn't cost anyone one nickel.
Good job.
There's got to be a lot of fish left over, right? They put about 6,000 fish in there?
Yeah, we put 6,000 fish in there in the net, but we took the net up, so whatever's left over, they're out there swimming around free.
Thanks, Ed. Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some announcements that I do need to make this evening concerning vacancies on following committees. These vacancies will be as of July 1st. We have one appointment to the Civil Service Commission for a 3-year term, 3 appointments to the Advisory Committee for the Disabled for a 2-year term, and 2 appointments to the Sparks Parks and Recreation Commission for a 3-year term. There's also 1 vacancy on the Noise Advisory Panel for a term that will expire on December 31st, 2012. Persons interested in serving on any of these committees should complete a community service application available from the city clerk's office. You may also apply online at the city's website, which remains www.cityofsparks.us. And from there, you will find an easy-to-identify link to get involved in your community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further business, we're adjourned.
To order the redevelopment agency meeting for Monday, June 13th, with a roll call, please. Here.
Agency Secretary Patterson here. Agency members Ratty. Here. Lawson.
Here.
Martini.
Here.
Kerrigan.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Chief Administrative Officer Terry.
Here.
Agency Attorney Adams.
Here. Okay, I will open up the public comment. I do not have any cards. Would anybody like to speak at this time? Okay, we'll close the public comment, bring it back to the agency. Looking for approval of the agenda. Anybody wanting to take anything out of sequence or pulling?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman, as outlined by staff.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Carey, your name's on the screen. Did you want to say something?
My apologies.
Okay, that's okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, number 3, recommendation to approve the minutes of the regular redevelopment agency meeting of May the 9th, 2011, which was continued from May the 23rd. The special redevelopment agency meeting of May 17th, 2011, and the regular meeting of May 23rd, 2011. Any changes, additions? Looking for a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? You want me to repeat the names for her down there? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 4, report of claims and bills approved for payment. For April 7th through May the 4th. That was continued from May 23rd. Any discussion?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Consideration of possible approval of professional services contract with Taggart & Taggart Limited for on-call legal services for the redevelopment agency. Armando.
Chairman Smith, members of the agency, my name is Armando Ornelas, city planner. This item is to extend an agreement with the Taggart & Taggart law firm who is providing on-call legal services to the redevelopment agency. The current agreement expires the end of this month. The proposed new contract is for a 2-year period and a not-to-exceed amount of up to $100,000, which means it's on a time and materials basis. In other words, they only bill us for the time that they incur. Staff recommends continuing to use Taggart & Taggart because they are familiar with the agency's plans, projects, and legal issues, and that concludes my presentation.
Armando, what was our budget last year? Or for the 18 months?
It was $95,000. Through April, they expended a little over $60,000. This is proposed for 2 years and $100,000.
Okay, any questions? Looking for a motion.
Move to accept the contract as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Armando.
Thank you.
Comments from the agency? Anybody? Any comments? We are adjourned. Thank you.